Hey crew, I don't think we've talked metals yet, but that's because I'm really not super knowledgeable about it. But I do stack silver. And because of that, I've been aware of the manipulation that's gone on in the commodities market, particularly metals. And we knew that JP Morgan was manipulating the metals market for a very long time. I saw this article and wanted to bring it to your guys' attention because they're about to pay $920 million, almost $1 billion, in fines for manipulative trading of metals futures. This is the same JP Morgan Chase that was in the release of bank records last week that proved that they were involved in money laundering, even after they were warned not to. Same JP Morgan Chase. I'm telling you right now, you guys, this bank is in trouble. All the banks are in trouble, but this bank is in trouble. And the European banks are in trouble. JP Morgan Chase & Company admitted wrongdoing and agreed to pay more than $920 million to resolve U.S. authorities' claims of market manipulation in the bank's trading of metals futures and Treasury securities over an 8-year period, the largest sanction ever tied to an illegal practice known as spoofing. The New York-based lender will pay the biggest monetary penalty ever imposed by the CFTC, including a $436.4 million fine, a $311.7 million in restitution, and more than $172 million in disgorgement, according to a statement from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. The CFTC said its order will recognize and offset restitution and disgorgement payments made to the Department of Justice and Securities and Exchange Commission. The accord ends a criminal investigation of the bank that has led to a half-dozen employees being charged for allegedly rigging the price of gold and silver futures for more than 8 years. 2 have entered guilty pleas, and 4 others are awaiting trial. The spoofing crackdown. The JP Morgan penalty far exceeds fines levied against banks and is the toughest sanction imposed in the Justice Department's years-long crackdown on spoofing. The bank entered into a deferred prosecution agreement with the Justice Department as part of the settlement, according to the CFTC. A JP Morgan spokesman had no immediate comment. Spoofing typically involves flooding derivatives markets with orders that traders don't intend to execute to trick others into moving prices in a desired direction. The practice has become a focus for prosecutors and regulators in recent years after lawmakers specifically prohibited it in 2010. While submitting and canceling orders isn't illegal, it is unlawful as part of a strategy intending to dupe other traders. More than 24 individuals and firms have been sanctioned by the Justice Department or the CFTC, including day traders operating out of their bedrooms, sophisticated high-frequency trading shops, and big banks such as Bank of America Corp. And Deutsche Bank AG. The Justice Department took a much more aggressive tact with JP Morgan by alleging that the bank hosted an 8-year market manipulation conspiracy with its precious metals desk as a criminal racketeering operation. While other suspected market cheats have been charged with specific spoofing and manipulation offenses, the Justice Department accused JP Morgan metals traders under the 1970 Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO, a criminal law more commonly applied to mafia cases than global bank probes. But global bank probes are mafia cases. Banks are mafia. Are we even going to distinguish them? RICO allows for prosecutors to charge multiple criminal acts involving a group of people in the same case as long as they were part of the same enterprise. The Justice Department said the conspiracy on the JP Morgan metals desk ran from March of 2008 to August of 2016. And can anybody in the class tell me what else ran from 2008 until 2016? Question mark? The 2 former metals traders for the bank who have pleaded guilty to fraud charges are cooperating with authorities. This is probably why JP Morgan's making the move to settle. The highest level individual charged is Michael Nowak, a veteran gold trader who remained active as the global head of JP Morgan's precious metals desk until he was indicted under seal in August of 2019, along with 2 others. A former JP Morgan salesman who worked with hedge fund clients was later added to the case. In 2015, JP Morgan pleaded guilty to felony antitrust charges along with several other global banks that paid penalties and admitted to conspiring to rig the price of US dollars and euros. The bank agreed to pay $550 million, but it and other global lenders in the accord felt little lasting hit from the markets or customers, undercutting investor fears that a guilty plea would devastate their business. So understand, this is a bank that was just fined $550 million for manipulating the dollar. Now, they're being fined almost $1 billion for manipulating the metals. So, what weren't they manipulating? Shortly after Nowak and other traders were charged under RICO, JP Morgan learned it was the focus of a separate but related criminal investigation into trading of Treasury securities and futures, according to a person familiar with the matter. So, now we've got them, they're manipulating the dollar and the euro, they're manipulating the metals, and they're manipulating Treasury securities. That's literally all of it. The conduct of the individuals referenced in today's resolutions is unacceptable, and they are no longer with the firm, said Daniel Pinto, co-president of JP Morgan Chase and CEO of the Corporate and Investment Bank. We appreciate that the considerable resources we've dedicated to internal controls was recognized by the DOJ, including enhancements to compliance policies, surveillance systems, and training programs. So JP Morgan, just so we're clear, they got caught manipulating the dollar. They already have paid for that. $550 million. Now they've been caught manipulating the metals. $920 million. And they know they're under investigation for manipulating Treasury securities. What isn't this bank manipulating in the financial market? And this is also the bank that is involved in money laundering with all of the other banks. So the question to me is also, if JP Morgan is manipulating the metals market, are all the banks doing it? Because I bet they are. I'm telling you right now, guys, it's time to start looking at the banks. If you've got money invested in banks, I would move it. If you've got tons and tons of money in your checking account, then you need to Google something called a bail-in. It happened in Greece in 2008. Google it. Bail-in. Because in 2008, we did a bailout here in America. But in Greece, they did a bail-in. And we can still do that here in the United States. People do not know what that is. Look it up. It's serious. Now, I was over here at Think Advisor and reading this story. I got caught by another headline, and I was reading the interview, and it does have some things in it that I want to cover. Let's move over there. So this is an interview of David Rubenstein, who has the David Rubenstein Show, evidently, and does a lot of interviewing of power players, both in the economic, political, and entertainment areas. His connection to the corporate world is primarily what we're going to look at. Keep in mind, this is the co-founder of the Carlyle Group, so he has exactly zero necessity to do this show, which makes his information interesting. What's your forecast for the U.S. economy? The economy isn't in great shape because we've had, in effect, a heart attack with this gigantic pandemic-related recession. The federal government has propped it up with kind of artificial resuscitation. But when that money runs out, unless the government puts in a lot more, you'll see more and more people lose their jobs. How soon are further big layoffs coming, do you think? Some of the larger recipients of stimulus money, to avoid bad publicity, haven't fired people. But on September 30, the money for the airlines and some other money runs out. And you are going to start seeing a lot of layoffs. And I just wanted to jump in here and say that as of today, September 30th at 5:40 p.m., Disney has already announced massive layoffs. So that makes me want to pay even closer attention to what this guy says. We've masked, pardon the pun, the softening economy with all this assistance, though not without cost. The federal budget is 50% debt and 50% revenue. How would you specifically characterize the economy? A tale of two cities. If you are in the internet world, Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, those kinds of companies, you're in great shape. If you are working a food truck, not educated, don't have internet access at home, don't have childcare, you'll fall into the COVID crater. The income inequality you might have experienced before will get worse. How long will it take the economy to recover? A while. Normally, a recession takes about 2.5 to 3 years to get back to where you were before. I suspect it will take us at least 2.5 years. In the face of all that, the stock market has been doing well, though with significant volatility soon after this interview. What's your analysis? It's been propelled by the booming tech companies. Without them, the market would be down about 20% from when the pandemic started. What else would cause the market to decline substantially? For political purposes, it seems, the Justice Department is going to file an antitrust lawsuit against Google before the election. I suspect that will propel the stock market to go down a bit in the tech world. It's true, though, that Google and other powerful companies just keep getting bigger and bigger, right? Yes, Google, etc., have been allowed to grow very big, and mostly nobody's been upset about it. But it would be very difficult to break up or shrink these companies unless the US government is very serious about it. So what are the implications of this suit? When the government files a lawsuit a month or so before the election, if it does, you have to argue that it's probably political, and you wonder whether the next administration will continue the suit. What are the chances that President Trump will be reelected? I know Donald Trump, and I also know Joe Biden very well. I thought that Trump would have a very difficult time getting reelected because of all the body blows he's taken. The pandemic, economy, investigations. However, I think that Associate Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death has given him a breath of fresh air and light. Anything else that's changed your mind? The polling data suggests that Trump and Biden are getting closer in Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Arizona, and Wisconsin, so I wouldn't rule out any possible outcome. If it's very, very close, we'll have to resolve it in the courts. That will be a jump ball. You don't know what's going to happen. And I think this is a really clutch comment because we've gone over the Transition Integrity Project. We've listened to the news coverage about why Trump nominated a quick ninth person to the bench. And it does seem like everybody is planning on this election being solved in the courts. The only way this election is solved in the courts is if they're able to put so much fake mail-in balloting in the blue states that they can push the popular vote to some crazy number where Biden has 2 million more popular votes than Trump, but Trump has a landslide electoral college victory. That's the situation they're shooting for, and then they're going to attempt to destroy the electoral college. It's just what they're trying to do. Clearly, the coronavirus pandemic will hold sway with voters. In your book, you include 2 interviews that you held with Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, one this past April. He's worked for 7 presidents and is apolitical. He's also very diplomatic, isn't he? He's as diplomatic as you can be, but President Trump got tired of having press conferences at the White House where Tony would contradict him. Tony deserves a lot of credit for standing up for what he believes in. He's been in a difficult situation being outvoted in coronavirus task force meetings, and obviously a lot of politics is involved. Why did he stop participating in those press conferences? It's a complicated situation when you are working for the President of the United States, and he's saying things you don't believe in. I understand why Trump wouldn't want him in the White House press conferences, because who wants to be contradicted in their own building? Dr. Fauci knew in January that the coronavirus had potential to be devastating. In February, President Trump was downplaying it. Why didn't Fauci sound the alarm? So what is this? This is a mutant hybrid of the same Democrat talking point that you saw released on Trump at the debates, and you've seen in Tip Report, and you've seen Biden talk about over and over and over again. Come on, man. He knew in February that it was going to be devastating, and he did nothing. He tried to downplay it. You've heard the talking point. I interviewed him about the virus in February. All right, so he interviewed Dr. Fauci in February about the virus. Now, I already know this, but it seems like a lot of people have forgotten this. He didn't think it was going to be that serious. he would say publicly. He knew it was potentially difficult, but in February, he didn't think it would be this bad. It's absolutely right. When Trump instituted the travel bans, Nancy Pelosi was down in Chinatown. Biden was calling Trump a bigot, xenophobe, whatever. And you had Mayor de Blasio down there in New York City saying, don't listen to Trump. Everybody go out. Everybody go shopping. They were against him when he instituted the travel ban on China, on Europe, and on the UK. He was ahead of all of them on that, including Dr. Fauci, who said in congressional testimony that Donald Trump saved tens of thousands of lives by instituting the Chinese travel ban when he did. It's really the whole reason I'm covering this interview. You will not find any other news media interviewer who would have said this. Do they all know it? Yeah, they're all press. They were all there in February when they were still packing into press conferences, and Dr. Fauci was telling everybody, don't wear a mask, and it's not going to be a big deal. And then now he said, oh, well, I only told you not to wear a mask because we needed to save them for the frontline workers. So he lied to us because he thought he was saving the inventory of masks for frontline workers because the inventory was never restocked in 2009 after H1N1. Anyways, I wanted to cover this interview. This guy makes some pretty important predictions. Some of them have already started coming true, and so I wanted to highlight it. As always, I'll put the links to all of my stuff under the pinned comment. You'll find my sources in every video. And I'm working on an episode now that I'm doing about what I think was going on with Biden last night. I'll probably have that episode released by tonight, so look for it to come after this video sometime. But like, share, sub the channel, guys. Try to get my stuff out there if you can do it. Any way to reach me or buy me a cup of coffee if you'd like will be in the pinned comment below. I'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. All right, peace.